1-2. And at the Hungarian Grand Prix, while the racecraft was a little bit better, it wasn't great for McLaren, as there was a bit of an embarrassment in a 1-2 finish that should have been celebrated a whole lot better. So, hi everybody, Freddie Bz here with my pathetic picks for Spa, but also a quick breakdown of what happened in Hungary. You've seen it on everybody else's channel, so I'll just do a very quick and light overview and give you my opinion. We'll talk a little silly season and then we'll talk Spa. How's that? First corner, man. Oscar, Lando, Max, unbelievable, great start of the race. I don't think anybody pushed anybody. Everybody had a little bit of racetrack. And what was interesting is Lando got so carried away with what was happening with Max that Oscar snuck away and got himself a pretty darn good lead. And that was great. And then you heard over the radio that Lando was basically holding off Max for third instead of racing Oscar for first. I don't know if they had an opportunity to race, boys. Like Mercedes, you heard Toto Wolff a couple of races ago said, go ahead and race, but just don't wreck. I don't know if the team orders were that. I guess the team orders were whoever got out first and whoever maintained the lead, they were going to be protected by the other one. So, I think Lando kind of got screwed a bit, personally. But I'm happy for Oscar Piastri winning that race. And I believe it was Oscar, Lando, and Hamilton. And to quote my dear departed great guy, Meatloaf, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Because I picked Oscar, and I picked Hamilton, and I picked their spots. So remember that as we get to the end of this, Freddie Bz knows what he's talking about. All right, so because of the end, Lando had something to prove. You know, Oscar had made a mistake, so Lando lets Oscar back around. Now, Lando's idea, I guess, was to probably let Oscar back around a la Rubens Barrichello right at the last turn of the last lap. But if you had a safety car, then that would have screwed everybody up. Again, I think you should be allowed to race. And the fact that Oscar, after the pit stop, could not maintain or catch Lando tells me that Lando probably had the better car and probably should have been allowed to win that race. It would have been his second win, and Oscar would be waiting for his first Grand Prix win, even though he got a sprint win earlier. It's just, it bothers me when you're racing like that. It gets almost NASCAR-y. It did remind me of Barrichello, Schumacher. I'm trying to remember another one. Hang on. And then in 2017, you had Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas, where Bottas had to give up the lead for Hamilton. Now, I understand the strategy in trying to win either a world championship or a manufacturer's championship. But whether Oscar came in first or second, Orlando came in first, they would have gotten the same amount of points. So when you hold the argument up that we were doing it because of team, and the team comes first, which is fine, then it shouldn't matter the order that the drivers come in. So I'm just wondering what's going on there. I hope Oscar and Lando continue to be good friends. I like the drivers that are friendly with each other. I think it's great. I think you have to be able to separate what happens on the track from your personal relationships, because when you get on the track, again, you want to win. So it kind of goes back to racecraft. As I've said before, you got to first learn how to go fast. So McLaren has got the fastest car right now, I think. All right. Then you got to learn to race. Well, they've done a pretty good job of learning how to race competitively with the other teams, okay? But then you got to learn how to win. And they haven't learned how to win yet, because that would have been a whole lot easier in terms of racecraft had they probably pitted Oscar first, then brought in Lando. And then what they could have done is, if they needed to, they could have put Oscar back to give Lando DRS so that he could pull away from the third place driver. Because the third place was a great race between Hamilton and Max, and it culminated in that incredible incident where Max ended up on his nose, and it was a no harm, no foul, a racing deal, which I think was exactly the correct call to make. And another great call to make was how Checo raced. Checo did well. He started 16th, finished 7th, I believe. You know, not a bad finish for a guy. I don't know why he wasn't called driver of the race because, quite frankly, he made up the most positions. He had to do the most passes. And, again, if you look at Checo's overall driving for Red Bull and the number of passes a driver has had to make over the last 2 years, I gotta think Checo would be right up there leading the pack in terms of number of passes during the race, because he gets around a lot of cars. So, you know, he gets a lot of grief, and we'll talk about that in a second, but he's still a pretty good driver. They reworked their floor, they went backwards a little bit, but you know what? They got rid of the porpoising a bit and they allowed their drivers to actually drive. So while the results aren't fabulous on paper, it might, sometimes you take a step backwards or 2 steps to get 2 steps forward. Maybe Ferrari has found something, and it'll be interesting to see how they go. And it'll really be interesting to see how they do at Spa, which is a fast racetrack, Ferrari motor, Ferrari horsepower, but also whether the porpoising is indeed gone, because you're going to find out on a track like Spa. So in conclusion, I got to think that the Hungarian Grand Prix had a little bit of something for everybody, and it was great. There was great racing at the front. There was great racing for third. There was great racing in the mid-pack. Yuki got a top 10. Everybody was working hard, and it was a good show all the way throughout. So probably one of the better, more entertaining races of the year. And then we get to really one of everybody's favorite, which is the race coming up this weekend at Spa. So before Spa, let's talk about silly season for a second. Okay? Let me take my official Kyle Illman hat off. So former Ferrari team principal Matteo Binotto has been hired by Audi as their chief technical director, not as their team boss, okay? But he's replacing Seidel, okay? And I think Andrea Seidel is being replaced after 19 months because of 2 things. He wasn't working fast enough, maybe, for Audi's preparedness, and secondarily because he failed to sign Carlos Sainz, which is interesting because Seidel had worked with Sainz, but Matteo Binotto has worked with Sainz too, and I think one of the reasons Binotto was there as his chief technical officer is to get Sainz to come aboard, because what Binotto is going to work on are the motors. And the motors for Audi are going to become the big thing, because the aerodynamics for 2026 are extremely important, yes, but they're not as flexible as they are currently. So once you're set, you're set. So your engine's going to really be a huge deal. And that is Binotto's passion. He never really wanted to be the Ferrari team principal, but it was foisted upon him, and he did his job, and he did it well. But he is a brilliant engineer. And when you put him, you got Hulk, maybe with Sainz, you really have a team going there. So perhaps that's it. What's funny is Hulk wanted to work with Andrea Seidel, and now he's gone. So who's going to become team principal? Well, there's a rumor in the paddock that Aston Martin may allow Mike Crack to go, and Mike Crack might go to Audi. And is that a good move? It's a great move for Crack, because I think it gets him out of a situation where he's had to piece together cars and a team where he's going to have a lot more freedom. And, you know, he's a pretty bright guy. He almost took BMW to a championship. This is a long time ago, but the guy is a good engineer too. So it might be a pretty good team to have Mike Crack there and Binotto on the wall. It'll be an interesting thing at Audi. Let's see if Carlos Sainz gets signed. Now, we know the Hulk is in. So silly season continues. So rumor had it that Esteban Ocon, they were trying to get him out of his Alpine contract early so he could go over to Williams and get rid of Sargent and get Sargent out and run the last half of the season with Williams. Alpine said no because they're holding a slight lead over Williams in the Manufacturers Championship. And I heard online that the difference between their position could be upwards of $17 million in after-season prize money, which is a pretty good chunk of change in even in F1, where you would think they just throw money around willy-nilly. But again, we're in the cap age of Formula One. So, does Esteban Ocon go to Williams? Or does Esteban Ocon also be rumored to go to Haas and to pair up with Oliver Behrman? I don't think that's a bad idea. I think the better idea would be to have Valtteri Bottas pair up with Oliver Behrman. I think he can be a good mentor to Ollie, help him race. He's a race winner. He has more experience. He has more racecraft under him. I think Valtteri Bottas would be a great teammate at Haas. Or, if he gets thrown out, Daniel Ricciardo maybe goes to Haas. Daniel Ricciardo has had fits of brilliance and fits of just terrible racing this year. But there's no doubting his marketing ability, which Carl Haas would love, and also or Gene Haas, excuse me. Carl Haas was the NASCAR guy. But Gene Haas would love, and also sponsors would maybe follow. And it would make Haas a formidable team with a guy who's a rookie who's very good, and Daniel Ricciardo, who also, as he gets older, maybe it's time to pass on some of that knowledge. If Ocon goes to Williams, okay, he's going to be with Albon. That'll be interesting to see how they get along. We know that Logan Sargent is leaving F1. He might be leaving after this weekend. So if he does that mean he might get an early start on IndyCar and maybe get a couple of IndyCar road races under his belt with an IndyCar team who might need a reserve driver? Theo Porcher jumped in to, I think, a McLaren in Ontario at the last minute because of an injury to Alexander Rossi. So, anything could happen. But I'm sure, at least, if nothing else, he could get some testing in as Prima goes IndyCar racing next year. Moving on, Alpine. Who are they getting after the break? Who knows what's going to happen to Alpine? Pierre Gasly is there. Got to replace Ocon. Who's going to go there? Here are the guys that still kind of don't have a ride. You've got Magnussen. Okay, end of contract with Haas. Probably would like to stay in Formula One, but he wants to, he's an older guy, he wants to go to a team that at least he has an opportunity to score points with. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I think he's out of it. Logan Sargent, we just talked about. Zhou Guanyu, he would be a backup driver. He even said he'd be a backup driver. He wants to stay in Formula One. Who doesn't want to leave communist China? Of course he wants to stay in Formula One. He gets to live in Monaco and have all that freedom. Come over, Zhou. I got an extra room. You can live in America. That's fine with me. Valtteri Bottas, where's he going to go? Well, I think he'd be a great fit at Haas. He might be a good fit at Williams. And again, Mercedes still has a seat open. Maybe he goes back and maybe does a one-year deal waiting for Kimi Antonelli. And that allows him to maybe have a chance to win a race or two and go out on top and also retire pretty well. That would be kind of an interesting way. Then we got Sainz and Ocon. As I said, Sainz is holding everybody up. He's going to maybe talk himself out of a ride because the rides are getting few and far between. Wouldn't it be funny if Sainz ended up at Haas? I'd be a big fan of that. But Ocon maybe to Haas, and Sainz, I think that they're going to make a last shot at Audi. Audi's going to try. Maybe he does that, signs a multi-year deal. That sets him up. And Hulk and Sainz, I think, would be good, especially with Bonato and if Mike Crack gets over there. So then you have some newbies also. So if Daniel Ricciardo gets kicked out, Liam Lawson goes to RB. Yuki wants to go up there. Checo may go backwards. I think if Red Bull tells Checo, we're going to put you on the junior team, I think Checo says, no, you're not, and he might retire. I just don't know that his ego could take that. And I don't know that he deserves, quite frankly, to be put down there, you know, especially this week at Spa, because last year he qualified second. He was only 5,200 behind Charles Leclerc at Spa, where Max qualified sixth. Now Max won that race, but Checo came in second. Just so, and we'll talk about that in a second. Liam Lawson, you got Mick Schumacher, and you got Kimi Antonelli. Those are four guys that could end up in Formula One at some point in the next 2 years. Certainly could end up next year. We'll see. So, you know, I think Magnussen's gone, Logan's gone, Zoe definitely is gone. And then maybe one of those three guys come in. I think Kimi maybe F2 for another year, and then he comes back to Mercedes, taking over for Valtteri Bottas, who maybe takes a one-year deal with Mercedes. Who knows? So here's my team rankings on who's quick and who's not. Here we go. I think McLaren right now is probably the number one team with Red Bull number two. Mercedes probably third. Ferrari with a new floor and new hope. It's like a Star Wars film. Might be number four. Our midfield's going to be Aston Martin, Red Bull Junior, and the Haas team. They're doing good. Followed by Sauber, Alpine, and Williams. Not in any particular order, folks. The last six. I don't know how they would order up, although I'd venture to say Aston Martin might still be holding a tiny advantage over Red Bull and Haas. But Sauber obviously is the last place team. And then Alpine and Williams are very, very close. All right, let's move on to Spa. 7.004 kilometers, 4.3 miles. It's got to be one of the longest, fastest racetracks on the schedule. A lot of fun, a technical track, 19 corners. Okay, so there are three sectors on this racetrack, which are great. You've got a very fast first sector. After turn one, which is basically a 180-degree turn, you've got your DRS detection zone, and you're heading up the hill to turn 5, and there is really no braking in turns 2, 3, and 4, which is a quick left, right, left combo, and you are flying. And that is an incredibly fast part of this racetrack, where DRS can help you get a pass going into turn 5. Then turn 5 gives you the second sector, which is more of a technical, twisty part of the track, where downforce and your ability to get over the curbs are probably going to be paramount. So that's something that the Red Bulls have had an issue with that other cars have not. So how you get through that is obviously going to be a huge part. And then you've got the third sector, which gets you all the way down to turn 18 into the chicane, which is a great passing zone if you could catch it. But it's also a DRS detection zone just before the chicane. So there's a strategy to, if you don't make the pass, or if you make the pass, you want to make the pass just past the DRS zone so that you continue to have DRS as you were behind when you get into the front straight, and then you can extend your lead. It's a very interesting part of the racetrack. So that's the racetrack. So what's the strategy? Get the pole. The pole last year was Charles Leclerc, and then he won that by 0.52 of a second over Checo. Max came from 6th to win the race. So really fun, really going to be a great race this weekend. So what are my predictions? So what are my predictions for this weekend? It's going to be hard. I will tell you this, that McLaren's fast, Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull, it's going to be one of those four teams are going to get the podiums for sure, but I don't think it's going to be, I think Max is going to win the race. Okay, I think Lando will come in second, and I think you'll see Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari come in third. Once again, proving that he is deserving of a top-tier team, and continuing to prove that he's one of the better drivers out there. I think Checo gets through Q3 and gets to the Q3, which is great. He's going to have a much better weekend, coming off a pretty strong performance again in Hungary. So that is my preview of Spa in Belgium. Appreciate you watching. Do me a favor, if you like what you see, please go ahead and subscribe. Hit the notifications buttons too. It'll let you know when I put other things up there. I really, really appreciate it. Have a wonderful time. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you next time. Ta-ta for now.